Hi, my name is Samuel Jones, and I'm your spiritual BFF, aka your good Ju-Judy. Today, I'll be reading directly off of a script that I prepared ahead of time because this is a highly technical explanation, so the exact wording is really important to me. This video is important because there's a ton of fear and misunderstanding surrounding tarot card readings, and I believe that knowledge is one of the most powerful and reliable antidotes that we have for fear. Many people have an idea of what tarot card readings are, but they don't really understand how they work. And if you're one of those people, I don't blame you. This information can't just be found just anywhere, especially in the way that I'm about to explain it. And for those who do practice and do understand, it can still be hard to break down such an abstract concept so that others can easily understand it and be intellectually satisfied. But fortunately for you, I scored mastery and advance on the English and writing portions of the ACT, so I got this. I'm going to start off by giving you my definition and then I'm going to break it down. In a nutshell, a tarot card reading is an evaluation of a target's subtle energy interpreted via the language of tarot. And don't let the word target throw you off. It can really be substituted for any noun because more than just people can be read. Places, things, situations, and circumstances can be read too, using the same process. So let's get into subtle energy because what's that, right? Subtle energy is a matterless form of energy whose presence is reliant upon technological intervention or our sixth sense in order to be detected. Conversely, non subtle energy is a form of energy often containing matter, but not necessarily so, that we can conventionally hear, see, taste, touch, smell, all of those with our physical bodies. This goes for matter in all of its forms, by the way, such as solids, liquids, gases, and plasma. Examples of technological intervention for the purposes of detecting subtle energy would be ultrasound and X-ray machines, thermal imaging, and Wi-Fi transmission. This is because the energy being detected exists beyond the conventional range that most human beings can detect. And because some people have a slightly wider margin of perception due to training such as meditation, chemical interventions such as drugs, profound bonding conditions such as motherhood or having a twin, trauma, or just because they're innately enabled, they demonstrate abilities commonly understood and described as psychic. As a side note, a relatively narrow margin of perception serves as a necessary limitation that supports our mental health. From a spiritual perspective, I theorize that those who suffer from schizophrenia have margins of perception that are too wide for their minds and bodies to handle. I believe that what they perceive is somewhere beyond simply a subjective experience. It's just that the conventional human being just happens to have a narrower perception that serves as a buffer, rendering what would otherwise be overwhelming stimuli as just imperceivable. Our much narrower perception is what enables us to live normal lives with the privilege to judge schizophrenics as simply being crazy when they are actually experiencing an intense state of overwhelm and suffering. But, side note over. Going back to people with just a slightly wider margin of perception, when you take all of this into consideration, the body of a tarot card reader isn't that much different from a carbon monoxide detector or a radio. Their bodies pick up information that, though conventionally difficult to sense, seems like that's my word today, is still present regardless and surrounds us all. Doesn't that just demystify things? The body of a tarot card reader will pick up subtle energy in the form of a sensation. Sensations are abstract impressions received by the reader that only they can understand in its raw form. It's like a computer receiving input data before converting it into pictures and sounds that a person looking at the screen can see. The sixth sense that detects the subtle energy and stimulates sensations will often correspond with at least one physical sense. So a tarot card reader will usually hear something, see something, feel something, know something that needs to be communicated to their client. And though it's not talked about as often, some even experience tasting or smelling something. For your research purposes, the formal names of these subtle energy sense correspondences are clairaudience for hearing, clairvoyance for sight, clairsentience for feeling, claircognizance for knowing. That one doesn't necessarily have a physical sense like your five senses, but that's still one of them. Clairgustance for taste, and clairolfaction for smell. You can look all of those up for more information. So, at our current stage of explaining the reading process and getting to know that better, the tarot card reader has received the subtle energy and understands it in the form of sensations. However, a sensation does not become a full reading until those sensations are interpreted and delivered in a form that the client can understand. In other words, the same way your thoughts and feelings have to be translated through your usage of language in order to create meaning that can be shared with others, the tarot card reader has to do the same thing with his or her sensations. Tarot, like any other form of divination, from bone throwing to I Ching, is just a language used to convey the meaning of subtle energy sensations. Now, what's spooky about that, right? For the purposes of this video, I define a language as a convenient, standardized system of predefined images. And images are pictures, numbers, words, or symbols. So one way a reading in general can be defined is a process in which subtle energy is translated into meaning via the deciphering of images. So according to this general understanding, you don't even need tarot cards in order to conduct a reading. You just need to utilize some form of language to translate your sensations. Tarot just happens to be a popular choice because over time, the images contained within it were curated specifically for readings. The system is specific yet versatile because even though every card contains an image with a standardized, predefined meaning, a picture is also worth 1,000 words, so that same image leaves room for creative interpretation, which is crucial. But again, you can use whatever language you want. Just remember, if you are or have a client, sensations do not become readings until the meaning of those sensations are translated and then shared. So as I conclude my explanation of tarot card readings and how they work, I want you to notice how I didn't mention anything about the devil. I didn't even mention anything about God or spirits in general. Though, just like anything else, they will be just as involved as you invite them to be. Being able to read involves self-trust more than anything, and is not dependent on a specific spiritual or religious path. It doesn't require one at all. You'd also notice how tarot cards, via my explanation of all of this, are just a tool. They're not the source of what makes a reading possible. Now, keep in mind that this is also a deep dive in how readings work. It emphasizes the mechanics of the reader, which are more active, rather than that of the client, which are more passive. As a result, when I explain how readings work to a prospective client, my explanation is more streamlined and client-centered. This is not a lecture like this. If you like content on how to explain readings to your client, which is essentially a combination of providing light context, reassurance, and instructions, just let me know and I'll hook you up. And if you're interested in having your very own tarot card reading conducted by yours truly, or one of my other services like a spiritual consultation or an intuitive interview, then visit my website, www.myspiritualbff.com, and click on the heading that says Book a Reading. I've made the booking process very easy and, no pun intended, intuitive. And also, if you're interested in seeing what a reading is like and you want to hear a real reading and what it sounds like, I feature my intuitive interviews, which is a combination of spiritual consultations and tarot card readings, on my podcast. And the name of my podcast is Spiritual BFF, the podcast. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Anchor's platform. So until next time, bye.